Today we're going to talk about surface water and groundwater. So there's 100% of water on Earth, of course, and that water is broken up into three major things. 97% falls in the terms of oceans or ocean water, also known as salt water. 2% is frozen fresh water, and 1% is liquid fresh water. So basically, we have 1% of liquid fresh water for all humans to share here on Earth. So where is that fresh water? Well, it's on our surface, and it's known as surface water. So this water is going to be found in lakes. It's going to be found in rivers, streams, sometimes in wetlands, and of course in snow as well. But it's going to come from precipitation in the form of rain or snow, or from water that seeps up from underground, because this down here is a water table, and this is fresh water as well. This water that's on the surface that's going to melt or that's going to move into the lakes, rivers, and streams is called runoff, and it's going to move from areas of high to low ground, meaning from the top of the mountain down into the water sources below. So beneath the Earth's surface is water that seeps into this ground, and it's kind of like if you were to water a plant. The water you pour on top of the plant is going to move into it so it can get to the roots. The same thing's going to happen with fresh water. So most drinking water comes from groundwater, and it's in an area called the water table, which is here. And you must drill below that water table into the upper boundary of groundwater to actually reach the groundwater that we would use. So how does water move? It flows from high to low areas. So obviously you would know that because of gravity. So like it's flowing from up the hill to down the hill. And also, it erodes and creates channels, and those channels are often parts of tributaries. So this is like a tributary that flows into a major river. All of these are individual channels that are going to become tributaries that flow into the main water source, or in this case, the river. Then we pretty much know that, just like in Nemo, they say all water leads to the ocean. Most of those tributaries are leading to rivers that flow into the ocean. So within the earth, or within even our country, we have what's known as watersheds. And watersheds are how water move on the surface. So watersheds are an area of land drained by a river system. Most of them are going to fall with areas that have large rivers flowing through them. So we do have like watersheds here. And all of these are based on the Ohio, the Mississippi, etc., the Arkansas. All of these are river basins. So watersheds are separated by divides or higher areas of ground, and the largest is the Mississippi River watershed. And that's because the Mississippi River is so large in size. So there are hundreds of tributaries that feed into the Mississippi. So in rivers and streams, there are a few things that are moving. We know that the water is always flowing, and there's something known as a gradient. The gradient, or the higher the gradient, the steepness, the faster the water moves. Therefore, if water is completely flat, it doesn't move very quickly. But if it's moving in an angle from higher to lower, it's going to move much quicker. That's true just outside in your yard. If your yard is hilly and you have a driveway that's steep, the water is going to flow down that driveway much quicker than your neighbor's who's flat. Flow is the amount of water increase during a storm or melting snow. So like this water is rapidly flowing because it's moving very quickly. And then there's something called stream load. And the high flow leads to a larger stream load. So faster streams basically carry larger particles with them. A stream that's flowing such as this is able to carry things like little pebbles through it as that water moves. And when the water slows down, the streams and the rivers are going to be like those kind of moving. They're going to be less likely to be flowing. That's when you're going to have your settling of those lows materials that flow through the water. So how does the groundwater flow? It's going to trickle down through the Earth's surface, and it's stored in a porous area known as an aquifer. Now, it fills tiny spaces underground, and basically what happens, those tiny spaces are storage space, and they're measured by what's known as porosity, and that's how big the size of the actual space is. So like this picture, the porous areas, obviously these are much more porous than this little tiny circle. If it's a high permeability, the pores are connected and the water can easily flow, meaning it's going to be soaked up kind of like a sponge. It's also recharged and discharged. If it's recharged, the water is going to seep into the ground and refill that aquifer, meaning anytime it rains, the water soaks into it and it goes back into that water supply. Discharge is when water works its way up to the surface and it becomes surface water. So people can use water for several things. They use it for drinking and using things at home, such as washing clothes, bathing, showering, washing dishes, flushing toilets, etc. You can also use it in industry and agriculture, things like cooling elements in power plants, growing crops, raising livestock, feeding the animals, etc. And then, of course, for transportation and for fun, for recreation.